Hi, and welcome to the Cleveland Photographic Society's Nature Competition on July the 24th, 2020. Let's start off the evening with our president, Mike Kopkis, and he'll go over a few announcements for us.
Hi, and welcome to our meeting tonight, our first nature competition of the year. As you know, we are doing virtual meetings for now. They're being taped. At some point in the hopefully near future, we will be streaming them, so you'll be able to join us live. If there are any visitors out there, we certainly welcome you. If you were here, we would ask you to introduce yourself. Obviously, we can't do that now, but please feel free to visit our website, clevelandphoto.org, to find out a little bit more about our club. And if you're interested in joining, you can find a link on there to get in touch with us and get yourself signed up. I want to go over a few calendar items, some upcoming events. First of all, July 25th, we have our Queen Wright Colonies field trip in Spencer, Ohio, from 10 to noon. It's a beekeeping place, but they have a lot of different exotic animals, llamas and bunnies and all kinds of things. It's a very popular event, and it is free and open to everyone. We do ask you to wear a mask and maintain as much social distance as possible. We want to keep everyone safe. A couple of other upcoming events that I want you to be aware of. On August 15th, we have Sunset in the Flats. And on August 22nd, Stone Garden Farms. Again, those are free and open to everyone with the same cautions about masks and social distancing. They are outside events, so we've kind of built that into our field trips for safety's sake. Upcoming meetings on July 31st, we have one of our members, Jerry Jelinek, talking about macro photography. And then we have a couple of competitions also coming up, photojournalism on August 7th and the creative competition on August 14th. And I want to point out that the deadline for both of those entries is August 5th. And then finally, I'd like to mention the CPS Photo Challenge. It's a great way to keep busy with your camera. Our current topic for this 2 weeks is window light. And you have to have pictures taken between July 19th and August 1st. And on August 2nd, we will come up with a new topic. Again, it's a great way to keep busy with the camera. You need a Flickr account, so we have instructions on the website as to how to get a Flickr account and how to participate. So if you have any questions about that, please contact us. At this point, I'd like to turn this over to our competition and nature chair, Bill Keaton, who will talk a little bit about tonight's competition. Bill?
Hello all, welcome to the nature competition. Just want to say thanks for all the participation. Despite these trying times, I think we have almost 150 images tonight, 147. So thank you for everybody that submitted images. I want to take a second to go over the hand of man rule. I'm afraid I had to move 7 or 8 photographs to pictorial because they violated that rule. The hand of man rule says you cannot have a photograph that shows the presence of man of any kind. Vehicles, chairs, a sawed stump, that's all shows the hand of man. So next time, please review the rules for the next competitions, and it'll make it nicer for everybody if I don't have to move your photos from a category. And with that, let's talk about the judges for tonight. We have 3 judges new to CPS. The first is Tom Croce. Tom Croce is originally from the Cleveland area and currently runs a fine art photography business in southwestern Ohio. He earned a BE degree from the Miami University of Fine Arts in 1984 and a Master of Architecture degree from Washington University, St. Louis in 1987. Tom is a freelance photographer with more than 30 years' experience and had work published in National Geographic, Landscape Photography Magazine, and the NANPA Expression 2016, a publication of the North American Nature Photographers Association Top 250 Images. Also tonight we have Ed McKiro. Ed is a full-time nature photographer whose images have been published internationally, including several magazine covers. He has a PhD in optics and has published multiple research papers on light. Ed is an active proponent for wildlife and ethical photography, has served as vice president of the board of directors for the Boscdale Apache National Wildlife Refuge, and is an advisor to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for nature photography. He has published research on raptors and conducts official scientific surveys of wildlife. His work is sold in galleries in Taos, Santa Fe, and Albuquerque. Our last judge is Brian Wilson, and Brian grew up in Portage County, exploring the world around him. His interest in photography started many decades ago, and he honed his first skills in the Boy Scouts and then with years of experience. Brian considers himself an explorer first, a photographer second. He spent many years shooting film before making the transition to digital photography. His recent interests include waterfalls as well as other natural landscapes, and you will find him out exploring with his cameras several days a week. Just want to take a second to go over the judging criteria for those that are not familiar. Judges score images on a scale of 5 to 9. That leads to a top or perfect score of 27. The three judges' scores are combined to make that. Images are judged on 3 criteria: impact, composition, and technique. And with that, I believe we'll get to the competition for tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Couple things to tell you. Because the judges submitted their comments in writing in advance, their comments will be read by CPS members this evening. Brian Wilson will be read by Chuck Fitzgerald. Tom will be read by Bill Keaton, and Ed will be written by read by Mike Kopkas. As you know, when you entered the competition, you submitted images and asked which would be commented upon by the judges. We will start with the nature images with no judges' comments. First image is by Mike Lonsdale. It is called Total Reflection. Score is 17 points. Second image is by Dan Hennessy, A Spider Close Up, 18 points. Richard Schneider, After the Snowfall, Kings Canyon, 23 points, honorable mention. Sue Marquardt, Baltimore Oriole, 20 points. Kathy Amari, Bee on a Coneflower, 23 points, honorable mention. Jim Rowe, Belize, 20 points. John Downey, Bison, 21 points. Gary Wood, Building a Nest, 20 points. John Downey, Bull Elk, 21 points. Susan Bestel, Butterfly Buffet, 25 points, third place. Brian O'Riordan. Charlie, 23 points, honorable mention. Vicky Wirt, Clematis, 24 points, honorable mention. Joseph Miko, Colorful Dahlia, 25 points, third place. Dennis Wirt, Concentration, 21 points. Jane Sidney, Coneflower a la Lens Baby, 22 points. Joseph Miko, Cortez Waterfall, 20 points. Kathleen Amari, Echo, 22 points. Bill Keaton, Eye-Catching Orange, 26 points, second place. Tammy Yankovic, Favorite Lunch Spot, 17 points. John Harford, Female Purple Martin, 23 points, honorable mention. Kathy Amari, Field of Daisies, 20 points. Bob Kovaleski, Green Heron Cha-Cha-Cha, 25 points, third place. Anthony Warmoth, Grizzly Swim. Go back one. There we are. Grizzly Swim. 25 points, third place. Ron Werman, Hawk in Flight, 21 points. Michael Smith, Heron, number 69, 20 points. Elda Baroni, Heron's Courting, 23 points, honorable mention. Jim Rowe, Hasta 2, 22 points. David Burns, I Can See You, 22 points. Mike Kopkis, Icy Falls, 23 points, honorable mention. Dale Cohen, Just Lookin', 23 points, honorable mention. Gary Marich, Limber Pine, Craters of the Moon, Idaho, 17 points. Daniel Sandy, Little Purple Flower, 19 points. Daniel Sandy, Macro Purple Flowers, 20 points. Vicky Wirt, Miss Poppy, 27 points, first place. For those of you unfamiliar with our competitions, at this point we would stop the competition, turn on the lights, and present a very special 27 ribbon to Vicky. 27 is a perfect score. It means that all judges scored the image 9 points, and we hand out very few of these per year. So it's a very special honor, and Vicky will be mailed her 27 ribbon, and congratulations. And I don't know if you heard the applause, but that's typical for a winning 27 image. Wayne Feuerstein, Mom Builds a New Home, 21 points. Also Wayne Feuerstein, Mom Nest Babies to Come, 24 points, honorable mention. Brian O'Riordan, November Leaves, 21 points. Bill Keaton, One Curious Bird, 22 points. Ronald Wilson, Osprey 2, 21 points. Paul Smetona, Out at Sea, 21 points. Jane Sidney, Path to Beach, 19 points. Dave Chaborik, Peony, 19 points. Marge Brady, Peony and Buds, 21 points. Melissa Burovic, Pink Lily with Water Drops, 23 points, honorable mention. Eric Wethington, Plum Creek North, 17 points. Robert Boyle, Purple and White Flower, 19 points. Bob Kovaleski, Reaching for the Sky, 21 points. Richard Ader, Redwoods, 22 points. Whoop. Keith Marchand,
There you go.
Reflections, 25 points, third place. Keith Marchand, Reversing Course, 24 points, honorable mention. Dan Hennessy, Sea Lions, 22 points. Belinda Prinz, Spinning, Not Surfing the Web, 23 points, honorable mention. Rick Mills, Sunflowers and Blue Sky, 23 points, honorable mention. Donna Schneider, Upper Peninsula Waterfall, 22 points. Susan Mahorchik, Vermont Pond, 26 points, second place. Rick Carell, Wood Duck in Hiding, 24 points, honorable mention. Robert Boyle, Yellow Flower Number 1, 20 points. Shashir Kapadia, Zion, 25 points, third place. We'll now begin the comment portion of the nature competition, and the first image there will be Paul Smetona's "Bee on Pink Flower," read by Brian Wilson, read by Chuck Fitzgerald, reading from Brian Wilson.
Brian says, nicely focused detail. This is not a usual flower for a honeybee, but perhaps he's getting a drink of water or resting. I think this photo lends itself to a horizontal cropping and perhaps leaving a little more space in front of the bee. Otherwise, the exposure is top-notch.
Again, Paul Smetona, "Bee on Pink Flower," 21 points.
Tom says, this is a beautiful flower. The composition is good and the crop looks intentional. There is nothing in the frame that wasn't intended to be there. The image does feel to me to be a bit oversaturated, which may also account for the petals being a little soft. There are also a few of the petals in the center of the flower with areas that are overexposed. If the intention was to have everything in sharp focus, I would use a smaller aperture and adjust the exposure by 2/3 to a full stop. But overall, a very nice image.
Mike Kopkis, "Dahlia Dazzle," 20 points.
Ed says, I like the composition that keeps my eye interested as I look at the reflections and then the detail on the dragonfly, damselfly. I am not sure if this was cropped. If so, you may want to leave a bit more room on the upper right-hand side.
Kathleen Amari, "Dragonflies," 25 points, third place.
Brian's thoughts are, what a nice capture of this subject. The positioning of the subject and the composition was done well, and a nice bokeh background gives a good sense of depth. The only thing I may change is try to capture more of the detail on the bird's back.
Elda Baroni, "Egret, Mating Season," 25 points, third place.
Tom says, what a great moment. I love it anytime I can get animals interacting. The eyes are beautifully lit and the birds are tack sharp. The image is slightly overexposed. There are some areas of blown highlights on the feathers. I would consider adjusting the crop to remove about 1/2 the space on the bottom and left portions of the frame. I would also remove the blurry stick in the background.
Rick Carell, "Excavators," 25 points, third place.
Ed says, great action shot. In these situations, there is some luck required in getting an opportunity for good face shots showing the eyes of the wildlife. You almost had that chance here, although the orientation of the fish is a bit challenging. I do like how you have a great eye composition on the bird, though. The highlight slider in Lightroom or other software could be reduced a lot. That would help bring back some detail in the bright areas of the fish. Overall, though, a wonderful action shot where you did the best anyone could do in capturing that moment in time.
Mike Lonsdale, "Eye to Eye in Battle," 19 points.
Brian says, a nice capture of a great scene to witness. I'm having trouble identifying what it is, but beyond that, a neat experience. As a photo, it seems to lack something that makes it stand out. I do see some glare on the leaves. If not used, perhaps a polarizing filter would help. The composition is fine. It just would have been nice if the osprey had moved forward a few inches and stood taller to have his head better framed in the sky.
Ann Gridley, "Fish Supper," 19 points.
Tom says, this is one of the images that I don't mind being centered. I think it works in this instance. Very nice detail on the petals and portions of the center part of the flower. Where things start to deteriorate is in the center. It looks very muddy, with very little detail compared to the rest of the image. I think the lighting was working against you in this case. If you were shooting outdoors in direct sun, try a translucent diffuser. That will help you get better color, and by reducing the dynamic range, you won't be forced to try and recover detail in the shadows.
Belinda Prins, floral fireworks, 20 points.
Ed says, you can almost hear this hawk screaming when looking at this photo. The image really conveys the full situation well. The branches are a distraction. However, it is nice to see them left in place as it makes it more realistic.
Gary Marich, Golden Eagle, Ghost Ranch, Steamboat Springs, Colorado, 17 points.
Brian says, a nice summer scene captured in a golden hour. These seed heads have tons of detail. I would have liked to have seen more of that captured, perhaps by sharper focus or narrower aperture, and maybe a slightly darker exposure. But the composition is nice.
Sue Marquard, Gone to Seed, 21 points.
Tom says, this is a wonderful moment. I think this image is about 90% there. I would adjust the crop, probably to a different aspect ratio. I would crop to somewhere close to the weed on the bottom of the frame. If portions of the weed are still included, burn them in until it is close to tone to the surroundings. I would also burn in the brighter areas around the edges on the right side of the frame to bring them closer in tone to the surroundings. Last, I would dodge just a little the eyes and the streak of light so it connects with the light falling across the face.
Anthony Warmoth, Gorilla Resting, 20 points.
Ed says, this image has a powerful composition with the green heron intensely lined up. If it is a crop, it is a bit tight. Leaving a bit more space around the heron is suggested, although only if there are not overly distracting items in a larger crop.
Gary Wood, Green Heron Hunting, 22 points.
Brian's thought is a great capture with nice exposure. These shots can be difficult with light and dark areas all in one scene. I notice that my eye first focuses on the waterfall, then the trees to the center left, then to the bottom right, where it fails to find anything of interest. So perhaps a slightly different composition with something in the bottom right to stop one's eyes from leaving the photo.
Susan Bestel, Grinnell Lake, 23 points, honorable mention.
Tom says, this is a very nice image of this hummingbird. The bird is in focus. I don't mind the little bit of wing blur combined with the tongue sticking out adds a little sense of action. It is slightly overexposed, and I wish in terms of the light levels, there was more separation between the bird and the flower and the background. I wish it was darker with less contrast between the dark areas and the bright areas of the background.
Melissa Borovic, Hummingbird with Bee Balm, 23 points, honorable mention.
Ed says, I love the feel of this photograph. It is very painterly and yet also realistic. Well done. The composition is perfect, and I like the contrasting colors opposite on the color wheel. The color contrast is also very natural and not overdone.
Donna Schneider, Macaricher Evening Light, 23 points, honorable mention.
Brian says, beautiful capture, and though the rules often say 3 subjects are better than 4, this composition works. The lowest one is slightly out of focus anyway, leaving one to concentrate on the other 3. Maybe that's why it works. The sharpness and level of detail is great, as well as the bokeh. I would not change anything. The only thing I would have hoped for is if the butterfly's wings had backlighting.
Kim Washaleski, March of the Monarchs, 24 points, honorable mention.
Tom says, I really like the moody feel of this image. The level of detail, the saturation level, and the exposure all fit perfectly with the feel of the image. The only adjustment I would suggest is to work on bring down the tonal and luminance values in the upper right area of the frame down just a bit, closer to the lower portion of the frame, especially the lighter lavender areas that are very close to the tone of the flower.
Ron Werman, Masterwort in Bloom, another 27-point perfect score, first place.
Ed says, my eye really explores this flower, an iris, as it interests me in the variety of textures. Although there is some field blur, depth of field, I think it helps this photo by conveying a sense of depth into the black background.
Marge Brady, Portrait of an Iris, 24 points, honorable mention.
Brian says this has some very nice detail, right down to the drop of water at the tip of the beak. Exposure and depth of field are great. Perhaps if it were possible, I would prefer a slightly different background. Something with a bluish tint from the water that would make the white parts of this bird to stand out more. But then it may not have been possible.
Michael Smith, The Pelican, 23 points, honorable mention.
Tom says, I love the water drops on this flower. The white portion of the flower in the center is in focus, and the exposure is spot on. I believe the photo is a photo of the white portion of the flower surrounded by the beautiful curve of that purple petal. I would have cropped to fill the frame with those 2 elements. I would also try a slightly lower angle to see less of the top of the petal and more of the center portion. By getting in closer, the background will also go softer, helping to emphasize the curve of the petal.
Dave Chaborik, Tulip's Petal Embracing Its Pistil, 22 points.
Ed says, this image is lively in the sense that there is a lot going on in the composition. The repeating pattern of trees on the small islands, framed by the 2 vertically tall trees, draws my eye into the scene. The trees in the foreground, on the sides of the frame, are a bit distracting. However, the taller trees set the frame for me to look into.
Susan Mahorchik, Vermont Pond Through the Trees, 22 points.
Brian says this is a nice sharp capture of the 2 birds seeming to non-verbally communicate. I may have preferred a vertical composition, capturing more of the background and more of the reflection.
David Burns, Your Place or Mine, 18 points. We'll now move to the pictorial portion of the competition. Again, starting with the images without judges' comments. First image is by Tom Fleming, B&O Roundhouse, 18 points. Donna Schneider, Backyard Visitor, 22 points, honorable mention. Tammy Yankovic. Bearded Dragon, 22 points, honorable mention. Rick Carell, Bluebells and Moss, 21 points. Dale Cowan, Dinner Time, 21 points. Jackie Sieski, Fashionable Elegance, 24 points, honorable mention. John Harford, Gazania, 25 points, third place. Anthony Warmoth, Goldfinch, 25 points, third place. Elda Baroni, Holden Arboretum Early Summer, 20 points. Ronald Wilson, Horse Drive 7, 25 points, third place. Michael Smith, Juvie, 19 points. Mike Lonsdale, Keeping Her Ducks in a Row, 18 points. Gary Marich, Limber Pine, Craters of the Moon, BW, Idaho, 18 points. Fran Marino, Mama Feeding Worms, 20 points. Richard Ader, Mountain Man, 23 points, honorable mention. Susan Mahorchik, Music Through the Lens Ball, 22 points, honorable mention. Fran Marino, Oh Dear, 22 points, honorable mention. Darlene Foley, Old Mill, 19 points. Rich Foley, Old Stones, 18 points. Susan Bestel, Papago Park Arabesque, 23 points, honorable mention. Eric Wethington, Pentax in its natural environment, 20 points. Jackie Sieski, Purple Glad, 26 points, second place. Mike Kopkas, Rafting the Colorado, 21 points. Gary Wood, Red Bud and Maples, 24 points, honorable mention. Belinda Prinz, Sitting Ducks, 24 points, honorable mention. Marge Brady, Stormy Afternoon, 22 points, honorable mention. Dennis Wirt, Sunset over Sedona, 20 points. Shishir Kapadia, Toronto, 23 points, honorable mention. Tom Fleming, Tuscan Landscape, 22 points, honorable mention. Kathleen Amari, Two of a Kind, 24 points, honorable mention. Bonnie Luxo, View of the Rhine River, 19 points. Rick Mills, Virginia Kendall Footbridge, 20 points. Ron Werman, Wade Lagoon in Spring, 20 points. David Burns, Washington in the Fog, 24 points, honorable mention. Dave Chaborik, White-Throated Bee Eater, 20 points. Paul Smetona, Worn Wheel, 21 points. We'll now resume with the comment portion of the pictorial competition.
Tom says, photographing other works of art is difficult because how do you bring your own expressive voice to something that by its nature is also expressive? For me, this is the main shortcoming with this issue. I just do see your interpretation of the statue. The black and white works well and the lighting is very nice. I wish the background was simpler, especially the wreath and the flower pots at the bottom were not blocking parts of the statue. I think spending more time exploring the statue, maybe some parts, the gesture of the hand, or maybe one of the faces would be a way to find your unique vision.
Mick Russo, A Statue at My Old Parish, 20 points.
Ed says, there's a lot going on in this photo that conveys a sense of being there. The composition is kind of busy, though, too, at the same time. My eyes keep wandering around looking for reflections in the water relative to the hotel. I wonder if a composition taken from the right-hand side that shows a cleaner reflection with less distraction in the foreground would be a big improvement.
Darlene Foley, All Lit Up, 18 points.
Brian says, this is an interesting photo. The colors and lighting are pleasing to the eyes. The timing is great. The leaves are mostly burnt, but still producing flame. What would I change? Maybe enlarge the composition a little bit, as the subject does seem to be a little crowded.
Daniel Sandy, Burning Down, 21 points.
Tom says, this is a nice picture of this canyon. I think you were there at the wrong time. The strong shadows are not really helping you. I would have tried just before sunrise or just after sunset when the light would have been better. There is too much contrast with loss of detail in the shadows. Also, at that time, there is a chance for something happening in the sky. I really feel like I would like to see a little sky. I would have tried it with the bottom crop just above the heavy shadow in the foreground. I also wonder if using a short or medium telephoto lens to compress the distance between the buttes and allow us to see more detail.
Tom Fleming, Canyonlands, 19 points.
Ed says, I love this photograph due to the technical quality of it and the moment it captures. It looks like a choir singing, and I guess the cool thing is that, in a way, it is just that.
Bill Keaton, Chow Call, our third perfect score of the evening, 27 points, first place.
Woohoo!
Brian says it looks like a great advertising photo for the Cleveland Clinic. The photo's not quite as sharp as I would like, but to get everything to be somewhat in focus, that's expected. Something about the lighting bothers me, though it can be true lighting. When my eye sees the golden color, I was thinking the golden hour, but the sky doesn't reflect that at all to me. I realize that the golden color can be from the artificial lighting, but it still bothers me. I am sure anything can be done. I am not sure anything can be done about that.
Joseph Miko, Cleveland Clinic Main Campus, 23 points, honorable mention.
Tom says, I applaud your choice of subject. We often overlook the beauty of things right in front of us. A couple things I would like to try is to first simplify. Look for one or two elements to focus on and get much closer and fill the frame with that. It might be as simple as the curve or shape of a leaf. Be extremely clear in your mind what the subject is and then work to find the clearest expression. Shading the subject would also help reduce the contrast and enhance the color and detail.
Jim Rowe, Come Follow Me, 15 points.
Ed says, beautiful woodpecker. The composition is a bit jumbled for me, though. Perhaps zoom out a bit or crop larger.
Bonnie Luxo, Dad's Home for His Family, 18 points.
Brian says, this photo is nicely done. The composition, exposure, and focus are all done well. The water is a nice believable color. I see too many waterfalls shot where the water is bluish or greenish. I don't see much I would change about it. Perhaps just widen the cropping a little.
Richard Schneider, Eagle Falls, 26 points, second place.
Tom says, I really like this. It is a good moment, but I think it's a second too early. I can't help but wonder if you'd waited another second or two, if he would have exhaled and you would have been able to get the cloud of smoke, which would have added to the story and made the image a little bit more dynamic. I also would have burned in the bright areas in the upper left area of the frame or gone to vertical crop and eliminate it. Lastly, I would have asked him to move his shoes. I think the image would be a little cleaner without them.
Richard Ader, Egyptian with Hookah, 21 points.
Ed says, clever and artistic composition. I like the technical approach you used to focus on the bird's eye and yet have the foreground in enough focus that you can tell what is going on. The strut on the right-hand side looks like it was masked and was not carefully refined. Perhaps this is just a depth of field issue?
Kathy Amari, Eye in the Sky, 20 points.
Brian says, the trees in the road provide some neat lines in the shot. I do find the small brown object distracting, mainly because it stands out as the only object in color. But I can't make out what it is. It does look like the lens or sensor may be dirty. Finally, and perhaps it is just me, but most of the time I hate power lines in photos. I think if they were gone, I would like it better, though perhaps clouds or something else might be needed in the upper right.
Brian O'Riordan, Fate, 20 points.
Tom says, nice job getting exposure without any motion blur. My comments have more to do with what you were trying to express with this photo. I really don't know what the story or the narrative is. I feel like there's not a clear idea of what you were trying to express with the picture. The exposure looks good, it's sharp, and you did a good job handling the high ISO.
Dale Cowan, Flats at Night, 18 points.
Ed says, a peaceful and soft, in a good way, photograph. I like the detail on the white flower. The overall exposure is a bit dark to me, though.
Jane Sidney, Garden Delights, 19 points.
Brian says, a standard feeder with a hummingbird photo, but very nicely done. I like the sharpness of the hummingbird against the rich green bokeh. Perhaps the only thing I would change is to crop out some of the background on the right and on the bottom.
Wayne Feuerstein, Going for That Sugar High, 19 points.
Tom says, this is beautifully executed, nice detail without being overdone. The composition is very well done. It does feel slightly overexposed. There are no blown highlights, but I might try to bring the exposure down by a third to half a stop. The background color is beautiful. I think there might be another picture inside of this one. I would have gotten in tighter and shot the stamen hanging down and the one on the petal.
Vicky Wirt, Graceful to the End, 25 points, third place.
Ed says, great sunset capture. I like how you included the people enjoying the view from the deck of the ship and the composition that emphasizes the transit through the raised bridge. The sky is great. If you used HDR for this, I recommend dialing down the HDR clarity some on the sky, making it softer and more dreamy.
Rich Foley, Headin' Out, 20 points.
Brian says, a very nice moody effect on this train station. You can feel the sense of it just waiting for a story. I can't think of anything I would change about it.
Rick Mills, Indigo Lake Station, 22 points, honorable mention.
Tom says, I love the mood and the feel of this picture. It has a very soft, mysterious feel. The scene is well constructed. The soft light works well to create the mood, including the window with the flowing drape works very well. Just a couple minor things. I'm not sure what the brown things on the floor are, so I don't think they're contributing to the narrative. Everything is soft and beautiful in this image. I would have softened the shadows on the right side of her face just a little, and I would burn in the light area at the top of the mirror a bit. But overall, a very nice picture.
Jackie Sieski, Laid Back, 21 points.
Ed says, this is a nice composition of the Mitten Buttes. It is rather subdued from most images from this site that have the colors oversaturated. I like the natural softness of this photograph.
Shashir Kapadia, Monument Valley, 21 points.
Brian says this is nicely done. I actually own and still use that exact same type of lamp. I even have red oil in it. What I would have done, since the focus is on the lamp, is lit the lamp and use it for some of the lighting. The composition seems fine, though. Though I would play with cropping a little to see what to leave in or out of the scene.
Bob Kovaleski, oil lamp, 22 points, honorable mention.
Tom says, a very nice portrait. I love the dramatic lighting. The use of shadow is beautiful. Just a touch more hair light and a little fill light to help separate her from the background just a touch more. I would have had her lower her right arm to eliminate the bright area between her left arm and her face, and had her rotate toward the camera so we can see her right eye so it is not such a straight profile. The shadow along her jawline is beautiful, and I would love to see a little of that near her eye and cheek.
Eric Wethington, Peyton, 21 points.
Ed says, nice clear image of this snowy owl. The exposure is great, and you can see the detail in the owl's eyes perfectly. I am curious of the context or story behind this image. Why was the owl staring at the camera, and how close was it?
Keith Marchand, pretty eyes, 23 points, honorable mention.
Brian says, an interesting shot and great timing to capture both lightning and a rainbow in the same shot. Though I think I would have liked the shot better without the ball. It just seems to distract from the subject. Also, occasional wiping the lens would be helpful. I realize it was raining, and that may be hard to do and still capture the lightning, but also appears there is at least one speck on the lens.
Fran Marino, rainbow and lightning in a ball, 20 points.
Tom says, beautiful location, very nice composition. The green on the slope is very dramatic against the mountains. I would like to see the mountains in the background a little darker, and you may need to open up the shadow on the mountains in the foreground. There are also blown highlights in the clouds. This may have been a good candidate for shooting it as a HDR, which would have allowed you to keep the detail in the shadow areas without blowing out the highlights.
Dennis Wirt, reach for the sky, 25 points, third place.
Ed says, this image is very powerful, interesting, and artistic. The circular pattern and tangential paths of the sparks are amazing. Well done.
Ronald Wilson, Sparks in Snow 3, 25 points, third place.
Brian says, this photo has several nice patterns of curved lines. The lighting works well to focus on the subject with somewhat of a vignetting effect. I do think something is missing. When I first look at the photo, my eyes are drawn to the handles. They follow the handles down and to the right and to the pattern. Since it's not fully visible, it remains a mystery. My eyes then move up the inside to the inside of the cup, which is empty, so nothing to stop on there. Thus my eyes continue the pattern. Perhaps something in the cup might help.
Robert Boyle, Spiral Coffee Cups, 20 points.
Tom says, this is a really beautiful fish. The color is amazing. The background is beautiful. I would like the dark areas of fish. I would like the dark areas of the fish to be a little brighter, and we begin to lose detail. There is a little bit of line outlining the fish. I'm not sure if that was processing or something else.
John Harford, Tang, 20 points.
Ed says, very creative image that is playful not only with the composition, but with the colors. I now see that the mushrooms were likely set up this way. However, at first I thought the image was a naturally occurring plant or fungus.
Tammy Yankovic, The Mushroom Chair, 21 points.
Brian says, I like the geometry of this photo. Threesomes, triangles, and almost a cornucopia pattern. The detail is nice, though it does not appear the leaf is in sharper focus than the caterpillar, which I assume is the subject. Of course, it may have moved.
Dan Hennessy, Three Leaves, 21 points.
Tom says, very nice scene. The exposure looks good, but could use some more contrast in the mountains and trees, and perhaps a little more saturation. I would also crop the left side of the frame to just to the right of the first tree trunk, so you get all of one tree and the limbs of the other.
John Downey, Yellowstone, 21 points. That concludes tonight's competition. If you would like some more information about the Cleveland Photographic Society or would like to share it with your family and friends, we encourage you to visit our website, www.clevelandphoto.org. We also appreciate your comments. We also thank our judges for all of their time and effort in sharing their expertise with us. And we would like to congratulate everyone who entered and to all of our winners. We appreciate your feedback. We're still new at this. We'd like to hear your comments. You can comment directly in the comments section of the video, or you can send us an email. We'd love to hear from you at info@clevelandphoto.org. Please join us next Friday evening at 7:30. Our own Jerry Jelinek will present a fascinating presentation on macro photography. We'll see you then, and have a great week.